mindset when they start game two. And no, they play double king pawn, as I alluded to. And we have an Italian game.
We do. An Italian game is really popular now. It's a very complex opening, and it's based on a whole lot of maneuvers. Ben, I tell you, the players are like, Ben and Yovi are in charge. Let's give them a classical game. So that little H-pawn moves forward just to prevent a bishop coming out. So no complications whatsoever from Denis. He does not want to get into that. And now the knight is going to maneuver. And this position is so flexible because so many plans here for white. You could have expanded on the left side of the board, but instead white is going for maneuvering the knight and just saying, I do not want to be trading off the light squared bishops. And everything will hinge on white preparing for that central break and doing it at the time when black is not ready.
Yeah, this is an interesting position because sometimes white plays for d4, sometimes black plays for d5, and sometimes both sides just maneuver their knights around and try to improve the position of their knights. Black played d5 first, which weakens the e-pawn. That's why black played rook e8. Now black takes with the bishop, so the rook on e8 is defending the e5 pawn. So black has a lot of space, but black's e-pawn is constantly under attack. And sometimes white tries to play knight f5, which was stopped by queen d7. White has two knights, so the knight went to h4. White's going to play knight f5. White's going to sacrifice everything on g7 and h6, and the crowd's going to go crazy. Yay, go white.
Well, we'll see whether that happens. Will a knife appear on f5, or will Denis just say, no, I want none of that, and drop back with the bishop? Now, generally, if black advances, breaks out in the center and gets away with it, then they stand perfectly well. But it says no knight. He allows it.
Yeah,
he's not listening to us.
He's remaneuvering his bishop to f8, it looks like, to defend the king side, stopping all my crazy sacrifices.
Yeah, that's a bit of a dampener, isn't it, when they stop those sacrifices and stop the fun appearing. But now we have a new set of ideas on the board as we see the left side of the board start to open up.
Yeah, a4, giving black something to think about. Black leaves the a file, doubles the queen and rook on the d file, trying to put pressure on the half-open d file. But typically when you're white in these positions, you'd like to try to play queen f3, but the bishop on d5, which is unusually placed, is stopping white from aggressively placing the queen. White can't sacrifice on the king side, so that's why white played a4, and now Jan's having a think. Do I play on the king side? If I do, how do I do it? Or do I keep playing on the queen side with something like b4, a5, or take on b5, open up the a file? And it's not easy to put more pressure on black's e-pawn on e5. That's white's half-open file. So it's not easy to figure out what to do. Typically, when you're watching a classical game, the players think 5-10 minutes a move. We don't have time for that. You got to play by the seat of your pants, figure out something quick, and hopefully it works.
But they whiz through these moves as I speak, and look, we've got plenty of time on the clock. I'm looking at the heart rates. Denis relatively calm at 119, now up to 120, 131 for Jan. And, well, there is no opening of the A line, and instead the bishop finally develops. Us conservatives would not have approved, right?
Not very aggressive bishop to d2.
Exactly. Well, maybe got ideas of expanding even more on the left side of the board, picking up the B pawn, moving it 2 squares one fine day. We'll see whether that is chosen. But something that black could do is something that you mentioned earlier. You know, just go, hey, you want to work your magic on the left side. I'm going to get there first and start advancing.
It'll be interesting if black plays b4. That would change the character of the game quite a bit. And then the a4 pawn wouldn't be doing as much. Then white would try to probably play a5, bishop a4, and improve. And b4 did happen. And Jan gives that a funny look. Like, that's interesting. I don't know if that's good, though.
Well, it's interesting. Exactly, because it's kind of asking white to change the nature of the game. You don't really want to be picking up your c-pawn and moving it 1 square forward, because that concedes a huge hole in the middle. So you need to keep that tension there. But once you add that tension to the position, it makes calculation that extra bit complicated, as we see Jan make a very quick decision. Just advance the a-pawn, and I was advocating for keeping the tension between the pawns, but Denis said, no, let me grab the space. Let's force that bishop back. But in fact, I say force that bishop back. You can take the pawn. And yes, the d pawn is falling. But I got to say, I don't approve of the structure that black has on the left.
Yeah, I was just going to say black has two isolated pawns on c7 and a6. Black got rid of white's d pawn. Black has the open b file with rook b8, but those two isolated pawns might give white the advantage later. But trading pieces isn't bad, especially trading off the white squared bishops. This sort of gets rid of white's attack with the knife on f5. And so the engine still says it's about equal. Those trades were fair. Looks like Jan gave the seal of approval. He went, that's okay. And now black wants to trade queens because the knight on f5 is so strong. White doesn't want to trade queens. And eventually, over the next 10, 15 moves, Jan is hoping he can put pressure on the isolated a6 and c7 pawns.
Yeah, that's an in-game approach, right? But we're in the middle game now, and so white needs to start just positioning the pieces. That's why the rook comes and takes the open line. Rooks belong on open lines. And again, decision time for Denis. What is he going to do? Is he going to accept the trade? Is he going to plant a rook on the other half open line? Well, those are the questions that need to be answered as his clock starts to trickle down.
Rook d5, that's an unusual move. Attacking the pawn on a5, I didn't see that coming. And if white defends with something like b4, then black can double rooks on the d file. So Jan just took the rook, getting rid of the pressure on the a5 pawn. Now the knight is very well placed on d5. Doesn't want to give his bishop away. Plays bishop c1, which unblocks his rook on e1, putting pressure on the black queen on the open e file. And again, engine says white is a little bit better because of black's broken queenside pawns, but black is still pretty solid and the pieces are pretty well positioned.
Yeah, I got to say, a lot of people will be like, well, hang on a second. What is that bishop doing back on its starting square? Well, it kind of works because there's no tension in the position. It's a very gentle one. And here it's all about that in-game that Ben has been referring to. White wants to just trade off the right set of pieces and then focus on targeting those two isolated pawns on the left. And in the meantime, Denis wants to improve his pieces. But one thing I see is that Grandmasters don't like to be pinned, and it is possible for the white rook to slide over one square and set up a pin.
Yeah, the rook on e1 is pinning everything on d1, e1. The bishop on c1, which you were alluding to earlier, is not only putting pressure on h6, so black can't play g6, kicking the knight out. It's also defending the backward b2 pawn on the half-open file. And I like when bishops are on f1 and c1. It seems counterintuitive, but they don't block the other pieces. The bishop on c1 isn't blocking the white rook, which can go to d1 or e1 and put pressure on those half-open files. So again, these are the kinds of positions in a classical game which are very slow maneuvering. It's not clear what to do. Players take a lot of time. You can't really do that in a 10-minute game. You got to just play quickly, and that can lead to some mistakes. Both players are playing really well right now. They're playing so well that they're playing the move you suggested, rook to d1. So you know they're playing well.
It was a really subtle move, and Jan did play it. I was also tempted to kind of flick the queen the other direction, just because I'm a hack at heart. But this move also super nice as well. And I'm actually struggling to come up with a constructive plan for black. You can't boot that knight away from the beautiful f5 square. And now the rook coming to the d7. Well, hang on a second. I would be tempted again to flick the queen all over to the other side.
Yeah, a couple of good squares. We got e4, g4, h4. The queen on a4 is actually well placed also, because it's putting pressure on the diagonal with the knight and rook on that diagonal. Instead, he plays knight e3, trying to get rid of black's most aggressively placed piece, the knight on d5. The other knight can go to f5 later or e4. And the knight on c6, it doesn't really have a good home. It's just defending the pawn on e5. It can't go to d4 or b4. Can't really move anywhere because it's pinned. And instead, Denis plays knight f4, improving the position of his own knight. The knight can't really go forward anywhere, but it's well placed on f4.
It is extremely well placed on f4, but it is just one horse, and one horse does not fell a kingdom. So we're seeing queens, rooks traded, the queen comes there, and I think it's going to be your plan all the way. It's going to be reinforce the left side of the board with the pawns, and then just solidify the king, make sure the king has a hiding place, and then white is going to be targeting, especially that pawn on the A line, the A6 pawn.
The position's about equal, the heart rate's about equal, the time on the clock is about equal, and for some reason, the voters said Jan was 87% to win the match. Pretty close match so far. So I don't see either side as a big favorite. Obviously, Jan in classical chess is higher rated, but this isn't classical chess. This is chess with a clock, and the clock equalizes the game. Now here, Jan is threatening knight takes e5, and the knight on f4 would be attacked by the queen and bishop. Also, white's threatening bishop takes f4 and queen takes f4. So white has a few threats against black's looseness on e5 and f4. Does Denis have a good defense? Does he have to retreat his knight, or can he play something more aggressive?
Well, this is the issue, actually. Like, how are you going to defend that pawn? How are you going to actually keep that knight there, right in his golden square? Because if you have to sound the retreat, then white is able to position everything perfectly for that plan that we were talking about. Also, I got to say, there could be a trick in town, because there are some tactical ideas if that knight drops back. And I don't know whether it works. I think it does.
Oh, you want to play bishop takes?
I do. You kind of gave it the idea to me, Ben. And hey, we got to put it up, because there is an idea that if you just play defensively with the knight, just drop it back, then there might be some attacks. The knight comes forward, and this is
And he did play bishop h6.
We don't need to show it anymore.
Double exclam. The engine loves it.
But we can show why that bishop is poisoned. Do not capture that piece.
Don't capture, because the queen.
The queen is going to fall off, and a bishop is worth 3 points. A queen is worth at least 9 points.
Not only do you lose your queen, you get your key crushed. It's a double whammy.
Exactly. The math ain't mathing if you take that bishop. So, wow, what a blow. Bishop takes h6. Stunning move, and now the ball is in black's court. And we're seeing that, of course, no one took that bishop, and instead black said, hey, there's a pawn on b2 that needs to go. It wasn't the best move, apparently, but as the players start to get short on time, well, it becomes harder and harder to play 100% accurately.
That's right. So we got a position that was pretty solid for both sides. Both sides took a pawn, one on b2, one on h6, and the engine still says it's around equal. Now, the a5 pawn is weak because white can never play b4. So it looks like Jan missed an opportunity when he played queen e4. Got the knight back on f5. He's still playing for the attack, but now he's down a pawn.
He's down a pawn, and who would have thought that, Ben? Because we were saying that black's pawns on the left are so bad, and it turns out that after everything, it's white's pawns that had to be careful. And now you can feel that because the structure has changed, and also black is up material, that black is now taking over. Denis is the one who is looking in good shape.
Yeah, black is a pawn up, black's trading pieces. White doesn't really have a big attack, and black has that past a pawn, which is really strong. Black is really solid. The white bishop, which Jan is using to stop the a pawn, is very poorly placed behind the c pawn. The tactics didn't work out for Jan, and now Denis is winning. Boy, that bishop's in a lot of trouble. Can I play something like queen a2 or queen b3? I don't like that bishop on b2.
You most certainly can put the queen. The best square is to plonk it on b3. You put that queen there, and that bishop is going to find itself in hot water. I don't think there's a good square for it to go. So therefore, Jan is actually banking on complications, and he wants to go for, okay, we're going to see it. We're going to see it here. His big idea is that if you take the bishop, there's going to be a check, and the king is going to be forced to abandon its own bishop. This was not the most precise move. It was more precise to actually drop the knight back to defend the bishop. A knight is a king's best friend. But this one is also still enough to give Denis an advantage.
Never play f6, but h5 is also a mistake. Yeah, Jan, what, double question mark. The engine's really mean. Well, I could check and take that H pawn if I wanted to.
You can. You can also take the bishop. The bishop is worth 3 points.
Bishop is, I'd probably take the bishop. Yeah.
I don't know about you. Okay,
he takes
the pawn. He goes for your approach. Why not just get rid of that pesky pawn? And he comes back. Look at this. This is just so sadistic. He's like, first I'm going to pick up your H pawn. Now I'm going to go for your bishop.
Yeah, the endings are all pretty winning. Sometimes black can even play something like queen b7, try to force a trade of material. Wow, Jan keeps wanting to sacrifice his bishop. Eventually, black's going to take that.
Well, I think black is going to take it right now. And Jan, he is now on his last legs. If he wants to survive this, he has to generate some miracle. And he's getting tilted. He's so angry. It's like the position just turned so quickly. And Denis took over.
If he plays queen e8, then just queen b7 defends everything. Yeah, now he's just playing for tricks. This should just be technique. Now, one thing in Jan's favor with this piece down position that's losing is Denis has a lot less time on his clock. His heart rate's a lot higher. So sometimes people make mistakes in this position, like queen b6 would be a blunder because queen b7 would be a blunder because of knight d8 check. But yeah, this seems like white just doesn't have enough checks.
It's a check and the king can just step up the board. It will be absolutely safe. It can also go back here. There's going to be just a few spite checks, but in the end, a piece is a piece as Jan moves his queen, attacks that bishop. And how are you going to help that bishop get to escape? Or maybe you're just going to say, no, I don't need to because I'm up enough material.
Yeah, black is up so much material, he can easily give up the bishop and still win the game with his 3 or 4 extra pawns. And black can start attacking also. Denis decides the e-pawn is very strong. Let's promote the e-pawn.
Yes, but everyone watch the clock because Denis now is down to 50 seconds. And with the queen and knight hovering around the black king, it's still pretty shaky. There's still some danger to watch out for. And what is queen to e8? You need to keep an eye on that pawn. The king comes forward, checks. And for Denis, it's just about holding his nerve and doing it within 47 seconds.
That's a good move, queen e5. That stops queen h5 check, prepares e2, e1, tries to trade queens. White doesn't have any pawns left. White has no attack. Jan knows that it's almost over.
It is over. It is over. And the grimace on Jan's face tells us everything. He has no choice. He has to trade off queens. And there is not only a runner of an e-pawn and a whole horde of pawns on the right side and the center and the left side. And they are all going to be marching forward. 42 seconds. Down goes the e-pawn. But it's the a-pawn that is the killer. As look at that. It's all cornered and a table slam and that's it. It's over.
Wow, Denis wins. Amazing. What a comeback.
What a game.
Especially after Jan played bishop takes h6. Everything went downhill after that.
Exactly. After that brilliant move. It wasn't so brilliant after all. You had to play precisely. And Denis, well, to the relief of his team, AGAL, he makes it through to the quarterfinals. Just 19 years old and already so calm, so collected. He's so good at chess.
Obviously, in classical chess, that's a big upset. The clock is the great equalizer. Lazavik, a brilliant blitz player, as he's shown the last few years. He's the younger player. And a lot of times in quick chess, the younger player does well. As we saw here, he was able to stave off after bishop takes h6, white's attack. Jan still can't believe it. He just won't get up. He can't believe what's happening. And soon he's going to get his key crushed.
Yeah, it's so sad. The heartbreak is real because there's so much on the line. You know, you really want to be doing well, but in the end, it just all turned for him. And this gentleman, Denis, is the one who makes it through to the top 8.